Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Talking with God in Prayer. Today, I actually have an awesome person who I'm actually interviewing today, talking about her book. Her name is Cheryl. I call her Grams. She is my grandmother-in-law. Um, there's a lot of stuff that I love about her, but I know that she loves me when she calls me idiot. So that's something that's really awesome. Um, Welcome, Grams. Say your name. I'm not going to be able to say your last name, as I told you before. So there we go. Introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Okay, my name is Cheryl Bingisser, um, which is a hard name. It took me a while to learn how to spell it. I was born 100,000 years ago, or at least it seems. Um, I got married when I was 18 to my high school sweetheart, and we were married for 42 years. And he died after a fall off a ladder. And then 3 years later, I remarried. And 8.5 years later, he died from a massive heart attack. So I've been kind of through the ringer, learned a lot. The Lord was really gracious to me during that time because I really needed it. After 42 years of marriage, I went from my parents' house to a house with him. So I never really had a chance to live on my own until he passed away. And then that was hard. But then, after my second husband died, I moved to Kingston, where most of my family lives now. And so I have both my son and daughter within a couple of miles of me, which is really nice. And uh, I have 8 grandchildren and 10 great
You're
grandchildren.
you're you're welcome.
Yeah, of
I'm
course.
only
If you're
half.
going to take credit for that, yes. Um, but I've always written. I did a lot of writing projects. Did a lot of programs like Easter and Christmas and that kind of thing, which I absolutely love. I love writing dialogue and script. That's my favorite thing to do.
Mm.
And it was just a few years ago, my girlfriend and I we worked on a project years and years ago that we had decided it was actually a screenplay from a Japanese woman that we interviewed a long time ago. And we did a screenplay, which didn't get us anywhere, but then we decided that maybe we would write a book about her. And I said, absolutely not. I don't know anything about that. Let's do a made for TV movie kind of thing. And that we knew how to do. But it was just 2 or 3 months after that. I had been sick for several months and I couldn't do anything. So I started reading. And I read about 100 books in 3 months. And after that, and watched a lot of Hallmark Christmas movies. And after that, I thought, maybe what I could do for Christmas for my girls, for Kayla, Carly, Jen, and my daughter, Cherise, I thought maybe what I should do is just write a short Christmas story and give it to them for Christmas.
So
Well, I started that,
so Grams,
and it,
that was the question that I was gonna ask you. So as we're talking about your book, what inspired you to write the what started you, sorry, what was the inspiring for you to start writing the book? Like what motivate you? So you already started kind of answering the questions that I
yeah,
have. I just want to throw the question.
it was, I had always heard that it takes a good reader to be a good writer.
Hmm.
So when I had all that downtime and I couldn't do anything, I did all that reading. And I read one book. I mean, I'd read a book a day because I didn't do anything else.
Yeah.
I still don't. Um, but I thought writing this short 10-page story would be kind of fun to do, and then I would give it to my girls. But since I'd done all that reading, a new character would come into mind, and I would start writing about that character, and then another new one. And before I knew it, I had a book.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I told my daughter in law, Jen, that's your mother in law, And I said, I, I didn't expect it to be this, but it is. And she got me in touch with a publisher that my son knew, Steve. And I called him, and she said, send the manuscript, and I did. And 5 days later, they said yes, they were going to publish it. There you go.
So walk the audience, right? Walk them through what is the process, right? As like, okay, you started writing the book. How how do you actually had to figure out to bring actually the characters? Because a lot of the people can think, oh, I can write a book and I can just write it to write it, but not understanding. So okay, you each character has to have their own storyline. So tell us, what was the process on that?
Well, I've always loved, I love TV. I love watching stories. So even in a television story, you don't always get all the history up front.
Hmm.
They'll, you get introduced, and then slowly, as the 2 hours or the movie unfolds, or the hour, you see more and more of that story, and you hear more and more of the background, but it doesn't come out all at once. So for me, it was learning how much to actually tell, and how I'm still learning that actually, so that you don't give away too much in the beginning, because you want to keep the reader interested in who this character is and what she's going to do, what she's thinking, um, when her romantic interest is speaking to her or looking at her, what's going on in each one of their heads, which is really fun to write. I like knowing what they're, I like to write what they're thinking. And that's another thing I'm learning. You can't do all that at once either. But yeah, you learn what the history of the characters. It's like, they call it almost a Bible. That you write a Bible about each person, what their history is, where you think you're going to take them, what their background is, and maybe what they're going to do. I don't always know what this character is going to do. Sometimes a lot of people write outlines and all that kind of thing, and I don't always do that. Sometimes I have an idea, but oftentimes I'll be typing away and the story takes a turn that I didn't expect.
Hmm.
So the character, there was a time when I wanted my character to go through some really troubled times. I was going to put her in a social situation where she was going to be working with children, abused children, and it was going to get kind of dark for her. And I was in the kitchen and was making myself breakfast one morning when I was thinking through this, and all of a sudden I thought, no, 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 I'm not going to do that. It's,
Yeah.
no. It was like the Lord said, no, what you're going to do is make her happy. You're going to maybe cause a pregnancy or something. And I thought, oh, that's really cool. So I came back and rewrote the whole thing and changed where the character was going.
So I
So I
know
know I
in one of the parts of the book, I know that you you were talking about medical stuff,
yes.
and when in you know when you were trying to figure out the medical stuff, right? So do you talk to someone who's in the medical field because you wanted to make sure that you implemented those medical wordings or situations the right way, so when a person reading your book doesn't be like, well, that's actually fake, that would have never happened? Is that something like, tell us a little bit more about that part?
Okay, first of all, I've been in a hospital more times than I care to count, so I know how hospitals work and
Yep.
doctors and all that. But I also have a granddaughter, Carly, who is a registered nurse. So I will call her and say, hey, girl, could this actually happen this way? Can I put this character down? Can she be down for this long with such and such? And how does that work? And if she doesn't know the answer, she does a little bit of research and calls me back and says, "Okay, Graham, this is what you can do, and this will work," and yada yada yada. So yeah, I have my expert at my side helping me with some of this stuff because I don't know. I only know what I've got. I don't know what everybody else has and how it works.
Mhm.
So yeah.
So one of the characters, I think it goes through so much stuff. Um, Give us a background of one of the characters in the book, right? I don't know
Okay.
the names of it, but give us like what is the background of one of the main character? What is his or her background?
Franklin. Franklin is my hero.
Hmm.
Um, if he were real, I'd marry the dude, but he's not. He's like the perfect husband. Um, he owns an orchard, a pear orchard.
Hmm.
He's also was in World War II, and he stepped on a landmine, and so he lost most of his leg. Now, most women, he's 42 years old now, and most women wouldn't even give him a second look because he basically has a wooden leg. Back this book takes place in 1950,
Hmm.
so it was right after World War II. So things hadn't progressed really well for somebody who loses a leg. I did a little research on that. It's really quite awful. So he basically has, some wires and it hooks onto some leather. It's just nasty stuff. And then he has like a peg leg. And so he limps a lot and he feels oftentimes less than the man that he really is.
Hmm.
Now, he's not a Christian yet in this book, in the beginning. And he has just lost his wife of 20 some years. So he's lonely. We see him at times at night missing his wife, his Pearl. Um, but he loves the orchard. He loves being outside. He's not, he doesn't think of romance. He just misses. He also has nightmares from World War II. So he's still suffering from that. But now at night he sees Pearl, which bothers him because even though the World War II memories are starting to fade, his wife's aren't. And he thinks he wants to move on, but he's not sure. So, but he's a good man. He's a moral man, but he doesn't know the Lord.
So my question for you, because you say his name is Franklin, how do you came up with that name?
I don't know.
It just the first name came out was like Franklin.
No, it's like the very beginning of the book. I just was sitting there and I knew I was going to start with this young kid. He's 25. I knew I was going to start the book with him, but I didn't have a name. And I just, out of the blue, Rafe, Rafe. Okay, Rafe. However, I didn't spell it right, so everybody's going to pronounce it Raff when they're reading it. So I screwed that up, but now we're stuck with it. So there it stays. But I just sit for a second and a name comes to me, and that's what I used. I don't know. It's weird. Sometimes I have to really think. Sometimes my friend Kathy comes up with a name when I get a
So
new character.
and okay, so coming of course with the name Franklin and all that, because how many characters does the first book has?
Basically, four main characters:
So you have four main characters. You have Franklin. Who's the other?
Kathleen,
What's her name?
Rafe, and Maddie. Those are the two romances in the book.
So I'm gonna assume that there's like two couples. There's two
Yes.
couples, right? So now, and again, this is something that for me, I will ask this question: is how long it took you to write the first book? Because having four main characters and bringing a storyline for each and one of them, that for me at least, it will take me like 3 years.
Well, I don't know how to answer that. I just know that I knew what kind of people I wanted them to be. Now, like Rafe is coming home after being gone for 5 years. He's had a childhood sweetheart
Hmm.
that he left. Didn't say he was leaving. She's not happy with him, but he comes home and everything is different. Now, this kid was a nice kid when he left, although he's had a troubled background with his family, with his father particularly. Um, so basically ran away from his dad, is what he did. But he also ran away from everybody else that he knew. He gets into a lot of trouble when he's gone. When he comes home, he has to settle his father's estate, who had just been passed away. And then he finds how much trouble his dad really was in financially. So it's a big, big mess. And Maddie's over here waiting for him to smarten up. She's been in love with him since she was 7 years old. And he's clueless, like most men.
Yeah, most man. I'm always clueless. First of all, as your son will make fun of me.
Yeah.
First of all, I actually loved your granddaughter since I was 16. I had to wait for her for 10 years. So, and she was my high school sweetheart. So, I'm for the record, honey, when you listen to this, that's me. I waited for you. So,
Okay.
just saying. Uh,
Okay. Go ahead.
so you so in the first book, right? Let's go back to the first book. How is it? Is it like how? I'm not gonna say dark, but how would you consider like the first book like PG-13, PG? Because I know the books. You're as a Christian, you're not gonna be writing the word foul
Aren't
language.
rated R.
Yeah. So what is it that you considered the first book, because of Franklin's background, and you have to make his storyline of it? Like, what do you consider the first book?
Well, I would say it's adult reading. I would say, 17, 18 years old. Because, first of all, I I think that, okay, how do I say this? I think that sometimes Christian marriages, w- women are maybe not under, let's just say they're not as romantic as they could be,
Mm-hmm.
especially after a while. So my books will always have married love as a good thing.
Yeah.
And expressing that love openly is a good thing. So to me, that's really important because I think a lot of Christian marriages lack that, which is
And
kind of sad.
and
So,
you mentioned about like it's you're right. Sometimes women forget, but it's also men too, right?
yes,
That's one of the things that, again, as I'm like, okay, Franklin had his life, and he'd been through this and stuff like that. Like your granddaughter would say, it's like, hey, can you be romantic with me? Well, based on my life that I have had and growing up and all that, right? As of course, as the older I get, hopefully the better I am. But like she wants flowers. She want me to come one day and take her to a restaurant. Things like that. It's not just and I will say it's not just the female. It's actually also men as well too. Um, But yeah, I just wanted to put that in the record.
Yeah, no,
So
no, that's absolutely true. I just mean together sometimes that the romance is lost, and it can either come from one or the other or both. I mean, and I just know that even in my marriage, my first marriage, after 40 some odd years, I didn't try as hard as I should have. That as I look back on it now, and I regret that. So in my books, I let people know. I mean, we have honeymoons in my books.
mhm.
And even though it's not explicit, we do get into the bedroom. And I think it's important to do that. It's not salacious, it's not, rated R or anything like that.
Yeah.
But we do get the feeling that these two want to be together, and that's what I want to do. And it's okay on a honeymoon to be in that bedroom a lot. I mean, that's what honeymoons are for.
Yeah.
So,
So from book number one, actually no. So the who is Franklin's could be wife name is gonna be
Kathleen.
okay. So tell us a little bit about her.
Kathleen is a wealthy woman. She lives on a 100-acre estate that she was an heir to when her father died. She has a maid, a black maid named Hetty, who basically raised her.
Mm-hmm.
She, this 100-acre estate also is beautiful. I mean, it's gorgeous, and it's got flowers everywhere, and it's got a river in the back, and I mean, it's a beautiful place. But Kathleen is a Christian,
Mm-hmm.
and she is a philanthropist. I mean, she gives a lot of money away. She's very helpful to a lot of people, so everybody in town knows who she is. She's also very beautiful. Um, she goes to church every Sunday, and she's very helpful in the community. So she's got a reputation. She also gives a lot of big parties and all this kind of thing at her estate because she can. She's got the best of everything. She orders her clothes from New York because this is a tiny town that they live in. It's a
Mm-hmm.
made up town. Doesn't exist. It did at one time, but it doesn't anymore.
Yeah.
So it's a tiny town, and Kathleen is used to having the best of everything. So she orders all of her clothing and stuff from New York City, so she gets what she wants. But she's not snooty. She's not a socialite. She's just a really put together person and beautiful.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the other two characters. You said
Okay,
there were four main.
yes, Rafe. Rafe is 25 years old, and he didn't believe his father loved him. His father was very neglectful of him. His mother died of cancer. I mean, I'm writing book 4 right now, so I kind of get confused as to where the story is in each book. So that's all one long story to me. But anyway, so she died. His mother dies of cancer. He runs away. Um, he gets into he becomes a womanizer, trying to fill that empty part of him with love from other women, which of course doesn't work. We know.
Mm.
Maddie works in a bookstore. She loves books. She's a very strong Christian girl who's been in love with Rafe forever, like we already talked about. She's very witty,
Mm-hmm.
very sweet and kind, and very generous with people. Um, and she's dated and everything, but she never really found anybody that she likes better than Rafe.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
those are the. There's also a man who was in World War One, who was trained partially to work with men who were injured because they didn't have enough doctors. And so they trained him to be able to at least wrap wounds and give morphine and that kind of thing. And sometimes just sit there until they passed away because there was no hope for him.
Yeah.
So he comes into this role as a person who was disliked in the community because he was very quiet, kept to himself, dealing with a lot of war issues, and was treated badly by all the kids in the neighborhood. You know, they threw rocks at him and thought he was weird and everything. So he's got a troubled past too. But works in that. He's a pharmacist now, currently, and he doesn't like actually working with people. So he stays in the background and makes the compounds and does the prescriptions and that kind of thing, and stays away from people for the most part.
Hmm. How
He's an interesting character too.
how do you implement Christ in these characters?
Well, by the way they handle things, for starters. I mean, handle situations. If um, there's always something that happens. I mean, the Lord is gracious to us, but we also go through trials and tragedies and stuff, like in my life, um, where that seems to be the thing that brings us closer to God because we don't have anybody else to depend on. And so, in books, as I was reading, and what I found out in my own life, is that that's when we become more aware of who God is, and that He does love us, that He does care for us, but He wants us close to Him. And we don't always, when things are going good, it's a little bit harder to be close to the Lord, we think. I mean, because everything's going good. When things go bad, that's usually when we want help, and that's where we run.
Yeah.
Because so tragedy strikes. You cannot live a life without something that is put in your path that is hard to deal with. We all have it. We have to. That's just part of life. And so my characters have to go through these things too.
And
If
do you have verses on the books, like Bible verses?
Yes, not I don't have tons of them, but I have the characters praying. I write out prayers. I have Bible verses that come to mind. Um, I have references to the Bible and how the Lord wants us to deal with each other, and how we can be helpful to other people, and yeah, all that stuff. That's all part of being a Christian. And so that those in the books that do know the Lord are trying to live a Christian life and walk with the
Yeah.
Lord closely. So
And trying to do the right thing.
yes.
Because like for me, and you probably, if you haven't heard, one of my favorite verses that I like is right. If I need wisdom, James 1:5. Seek
Let him
wisdom
ask for
from the
God.
Lord, right? Like it's ask the Lord, ask for wisdom to Him, and I like James 1:5. So that's why I was wondering if you have verses in it, because you're right. Like us human, we have the tendency not to look for the Lord only until when bad things are happening, and when in I will say this both, because even when we are good with the Lord, in our minds, we have the tendency to say, well, nothing bad's going to happen. I'm closer to the Lord. And I feel that sometimes there's, a wrench coming towards us, and we don't know that when it hits us, we're like, but I was doing everything right. What is going on? And, that's a thing right there. It's like, as I'm listening to you talking about the stories and all that, like, I can see, like, oh, wow. Like, Franklin is like, okay, he's been through so much, and yet he's just like, okay, I got my high school sweetheart, still gotta go through it, but it's like in I'm curious how on book number two if he still have challenges. And you don't have to go to like don't tell me the details of it, but it's a yes or no. Does he go through a lot of challenges in book number two?
Well, let me just say that marriage has its own challenges.
Mm-hmm.
So, in that regard, yes, um, they there are arguments. There are things that um, they need to deal with that are difficult, and so they do it together. But both of them are very strong people. Actually, all my characters are strong people,
Mm-hmm.
and especially my women. I like the women to be strong, but the men are too. I mean, actually, they all are. Um, so they each have their own strengths and weaknesses. And in a marriage, and with Kathleen and Franklin, they're both really strong. Franklin, he's got an orchard to take care of.
Yeah. So, which of these characters, and I'm so curious because, as you said that they're strong. You at least had to make one of them hard headed. Which one is it? Which one is a hard headed? Because I think it's Franklin, but I could be wrong.
Well, I no, they're.
It's okay. You can
I
say
think. Let me
you
just
want to
say,
say.
I think Kathleen's right more often than he is.
So Franklin is the hard headed one.
He's yeah. Sometimes, yes, he doesn't see things the way that she does, and that kind of gets him into trouble.
So
She
so
she
Franklin
can.
Franklin doesn't win at all. Not even an
Oh
argument.
no, 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 no! I didn't say that.
Oh, okay. I'm just
No,
checking. I'm just
there's
checking.
just things that they end up having to work on together. Franklin, there's something that happens that makes it really, really, really difficult for him.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's
And
difficult for her too, but he has to watch her go through something that's hard,
yeah.
and that's when there isn't anything you can do. It's very difficult to watch the one that you're the closest to hurt and not know what to do, how to help.
So right now you have out. You got what, two books out, and
Yes.
you're on number three or number four writing.
I'm writing the fourth one. The third one's at the publisher and the first edit right now.
Okay. So what is the excitement things that you will say, right? And you will be like, this is the most exciting thing that's gonna happen in number three. Because I know the audience as they're listening to it, and again, Franklin is my boy, based on what I'm actually hearing.
He's,
I don't know.
he's my
I
heartthrob.
got a feeling. I got a feeling that you wrote Franklin about me. That's more like me. I don't know. I'm just saying, Grams. It's okay. You can write it about me. It's
I don't
okay.
know. Were you in World War II?
No, I wasn't in World War II. I still got both of my legs. But
Yeah.
just lifestyle can be almost the same. I'm not hard headed. I guarantee I'm not. Actually, no. I think your granddaughter will disagree with that. But
Yeah, probably.
I'm not. But Franklin is my boy, and I want to make sure that he's all good. So, uh, as a
I will
second,
say he always wants to do the right thing. Franklin always wants to do the right thing. He just
so
doesn't always know how.
okay. So how did he know to do the right thing? Let me guess. His wife tells him what to do. Oh, it is.
No,
No, kill
no,
Franklin.
no, not
Kill him, bro.
exactly. Not exactly. But there's something that sh- I can't tell you. Um, it's just something that he has to learn to handle
Yeah.
because he's never been faced with it before.
Hmm.
And she's trying to get him to see that, and really hard. He just wants to take care of her. She's independent.
Yeah.
Even though she's married, she's still independent and strong. And even when she becomes weak physically, he has a terrible time with that because he knows that she's a Spitfire. Sort of
Yeah.
like Kayla.
What?
What? Kayla's a Spitfire. She's strong.
She she is strong, but what do you consider Spitfire?
She's strong and she's able to tell you what she thinks and what she feels.
She have gotten better on that. She has. I will tell she has, and I'm gonna tell you, I love my wife to death. She has gotten better on that. Sometimes I gotta drag it out of her, but she has gotten better at it. Now, me on the other hand, I could build a wall quickly, and not to say nothing, but I've slowly been letting it out, and sometimes doesn't come right. That's what I said. Franklin is my boy because I see a connection. Him and I, we're connecting right there. So I don't know. That's what I'm saying. You're probably right if Franklin is about me, but hey, I'm okay with it. So,
Yeah.
um,
I haven't really, I will say this, that I got a mug from your wife a year ago Christmas that says, watch out, you could end up in one of my books, right?
hmm
So far, nobody's really in them, but I will say this, that my brother, Gary, is in the second book by something that one of the main characters says to this little boy, and it's exactly what he was like and what he. There was a time when my brother couldn't stand to lose a game, right? And so if we were playing
that's,
Monopoly, if he were
I think
losing,
that's entire family. Nobody can lose a game. I
yeah, well,
mean,
Gary was to the point where he would just plain throw the Monopoly thing up and all the pieces would
outside,
fly
just take
all
it to
over.
the next level. Just we're gonna
Yes.
put everything up.
So I got to the point where if I was going to play a game with him, I knew I would have to lose. I
hmm
don't like to lose any more than he does, but at least I was good about it. Being a good sport. So
Yeah.
in this one scene in the second book, there's a place where this young kid, Lincoln, um, is schooled by Miles. He was the World War I veteran who tells him about how to be a good sport because this kid gets just really, really upset when he loses at checkers because he thinks he's the whiz kid. He's 7 years old, but he's been living on the street, so he thinks he knows everything. He's a street kid. But he gets schooled by Miles, and Miles tells him what it's like to be a good sport. And then he tells him the story of his brother who used to play Monopoly and flipped up the board and all that stuff. That was so much fun to write,
Yeah. Well, there we go.
to tell on
You,
my brother.
and I'm gonna add this proof. Um, so when is so book number one and two number two is released. When can number three? What is the time? The time frame that you think the number three is gonna be released?
I wished I knew. I'm hoping. They say it takes a book about 8 months to come out. It's for me. It's taken a year each book. So but I think maybe this one's written better. It may not take as many edits, and if that's the case, it could be out maybe September. I don't
Okay.
know.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
hoping September.
I am pumped because I really want to hear what happens to Franklin, but at the same time, I'm pumped because you know people with lifestyle like Franklin, God always uses them for His plan, and right, His plan no one can change it, but He's always used it for good. So hopefully Franklin just turn things around and um, Yeah, I'm excited about that. So I cannot wait
There's
for
a
number
huge
3.
surprise about Franklin in the fourth book. There's a huge surprise that comes to him
Well,
that's quite shocking, but not tragic. It's just really it's going to be fun, and I'm just getting to the point where I'm writing that now, or close soon. So
wait, there we go. So so how long are you thinking about making this?
this series is 5 books.
Hmm.
There's a storyline that starts in the third book, which is very exciting, and it's a mystery. It really doesn't get finished until the fifth book.
Okay.
Not a lot is said about it in the fourth book, but in the fifth book is when it all wraps up,
So number
and that will
three
be
is gonna. So number 3 book is gonna let everybody like a twist, like a movie. You're gonna be like all those the TV shows
you
where
won't
you
you
watching
won't
it and
see
think,
you won't
ah,
see it you won't see it coming. No.
ah. So, well, tell the audience where can they actually find your book?
Okay, the books can be found on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and on the
Hmm.
internet. It's also the first book, which is called The Gift of Christmas, is now on audiobooks and digital. You can get it on iTunes and Apple, I think. I don't, anyway. Um, the second book is being recorded right now for audiobooks, and it takes forever, so it'll probably be a few months before that comes out. Well, they said maybe midsummer, which would be good. And the
Okay.
title of that book is From Shadows
Hmm.
to Daybreak.
Okay.
It's
So
a
it.
little darker than book one. Book one is more romance. Book two is a little darker, but it still has romance in it, and it still has all the good stuff that people, enjoy books. But it does have some stuff that's happened that cause issues in the town.
Okay. Okay.
But then the title for the third one, when it comes out, will be called Love, Weddings, and the Key.
Sweet. So I'm gonna assume that one actually is gonna have my picture on the main book.
Oh, of course.
All right.
Right
Well,
up
great.
front.
It was awesome talking with you about the books. I'm excited about it. So for those of you who actually are listening to this, if you guys go look in the comments, you guys can actually see. I'm gonna be putting the link in there so you guys can um, check her books and if you guys want to buy it, go for it, buy it. Uh,
Leave a review.
there we go. Leave a review. That's
The
awesome.
review,
Always leave a review.
authors live and die by reviews. So
Well, there we go. Folks, leave a review. Leave it. Leave it.
a
Leave it.
good
Leave it.
review. Lie if you have to. No, I don't have to.
No, don't.
No,
Grams.
no, I'm kidding. Really, I'm kidding.
um, no, leave a review. That's like I said, is awesome. It's gonna help her, of course, to just continue writing more books and things like that. However, if you guys have any questions, make sure you feel free to actually send me an email. Um, Make sure you guys hit follow on Facebook, subscribe on Facebook, and follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I'm so sorry I can't even talk right now. And yeah, hopefully you guys like this episode. If you guys have any questions, again, always feel free to send me an email at talkwithgodprayers at gmail.com. Hopefully you guys like it. Graham, thank you for coming. See you in the next
Thank
time.
you for asking me. I've enjoyed this. It's been fun.
Absolutely.
And I love you.
Yeah, I love you too. So, bye.
Bye.